Okay. So my subject is whether or not poverty can be reduced in third world countries. Some introduction. Poverty is something that affects the entire world. Third world countries do have higher percentage of poverty, and this has been accurate for many decades. There are solutions that have been suggested to this issue, but results are not often seen. People who suffer from poverty experience things such as starvation, unhealthy living conditions, unclean water, and others. So this political cartoon represents the public sentiment towards poverty and how people tend to think about it. The man depicted in this cartoon is holding a briefcase that is entitled Science, which indicates that each of the things listed are something that is scientifically hasn't been accomplished. Eliminating poverty is one of these things. It is widely talked about, but results are rarely seen. So 3 elements that prevent poverty from being eliminated are geography, institutions, and culture. Geography. Third world countries live in hot and tropical environments due to living on or very close to the equator. Agriculture tends to be unsuccessful in these areas because of that. They suffer from things such as poor soil quality, lack of carbohydrates in their plants, and they live in an environment which is disadvantageous to photosynthesis. A certain fly species, which is most common in African countries, has affected the domesticated animals that help with agriculture, making them sleepy and inactive. And this made it so Africans weren't able to develop technology and have successful agricultural productivity and gain amassed wealth. A successful agriculture is very important for the beginning development of a country. If it's not successful, they are able to move on and become a first world country. Institutions are extremely important in developing countries. This is something that third world countries simply lack. They aren't able to have successful institutions due to lack of resources and leadership. Educational organizations and social development are necessary for a successful nation, and this is something that third world countries aren't able to do, and they tend to stay undeveloped. And lastly, culture. Religion is very commonly associated with culture, and when you compare third world countries to first world countries, religion is a lot more common in third world countries. Religious people tend to live in the past, and they focus on a future world rather than an afterworld, rather than focusing on improving the world they live in now. So the opposite side of why poverty can be eliminated. A woman named Claire Dieterle traveled to a small village in Kenya with a group called Choice Humanitarian. They are a group solely devoted to the eradication of poverty. Choice educates those living in poverty, and they give them the resources and the knowledge that they need to eventually pull themselves out of the poverty trap. So while Claire was in this village in Kenya, she was able to educate young women attending a primary school. Some background knowledge on education in Kenya. The young kids attend primary school from age 7 to about age 16. And they will take a test at the end of primary school which determines whether or not they will attend secondary school. So she taught them not about English or math, which is what you would expect. She taught them about their menstrual cycle. This was because women in the village she was in did not have the resources that they needed to take care of themselves during that time of the month, and they would often miss an entire week of school each month, which caused them to fall behind, and often this decreased their chances of passing the test and going on to secondary school. And when children didn't attend secondary school, their education often came to a stop, and they weren't able to have a successful life and escape poverty. So after Claire's visit and after helping educate those young girls, she got information back saying that the number of girls that passed the test and were able to attend secondary school was at an all-time high. This eventually will give those girls the opportunity to be able to have a successful life and pull themselves out of poverty. So my personal claim is that I believe that poverty can be eliminated. Choice Humanitarian has been traveling to Nepal since 2013 and has been able to educate about 1,000 families, and they've been able to bring themselves out of extreme poverty. So this video gave me the information and the evidence that poverty naturally decreases as the world develops. Some statistics. In 1800, 85% of the world was in extreme poverty. In 1970, only half of the world was, and in 2015, it went down to 12%. So this video just provides a visual image of how the world has pulled themselves out of poverty throughout time.
This. First Europe, and they spread out here, and then Americas on top of that, then come Africa, and on top of it the most populous region, Asia, including Australia. And as I showed you before, almost all people there were living in extreme poverty, on all regions in the world. Now, I'm going to show you what has happened. I start the world, and look, with Industrial Revolution, the population grew here and the incomes expanded here, mainly because of increased income in Europe and America. And then in the 20th century, population continued to grow here and incomes increased even more here. And that changed the whole pattern of the world. It became a divided world. The worldview you grew up with the rich West here and with poor Africa and Asia. But in the 1980s, the amazing growth of China and the other tiger economy in Asia and India, they start to get out of poverty. They close this gap and they are coming over on this side, and the shape of the world changed again. And look now, Africa is following. I call them the lion economies of Africa. And here we are today in a completely new shape of the world.
So that video just showed us that throughout history, poverty has decreased large amounts as income has increased and the world has developed. That trend continues today. So in conclusion, poverty is something that affects the entire world, and there are different arguments saying that it can and cannot be eliminated. But either way, it is something that needs to be solved, and it affects the entire world. So a solution would be for first world countries to reach out to third world countries and provide resources such as creating jobs, canceling national debt, creating access to clean water and sanitation and nutrients. And if these factors are applied, then it will increase the lives of those living in poverty. Chrissy?
With the choice group for helping with humanitarian, what are some other groups that have helped in the decades to
I didn't look into that actually, but there are groups that Choice Humanitarian has kind of worked with. I'm not sure the names of those, but there are definitely more that are helping with that.
What do you think the number one way to eliminate poverty is?
I think, like the solution said, and is like first world countries using their resources, because they have resources that they're able to reach out and help third world countries, and third world countries aren't able to help themselves. So I think help from first world countries is a big, will make a big difference, as well as like organizations such as Choice.
How effective do you think is like people sending over like financial aid and food and resources compared to like the people inside of the third world countries becoming more self-sufficient for themselves?
I think, are you asking like which one would be more effective?
Yeah, or just your thoughts on it.
So I think that it might have to start with first world countries helping third world countries, and then educating those people living in poverty will help them be able to become educated and eventually pull themselves out of that. No.
Do you know which country is the most poverty stricken?
I didn't look into it that much, but I would assume Africa. They were in a lot of the information in my sources. There was a lot of information on Africa.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna move on.